Okay, we've been sent a case today to evaluate for missing teeth number 10, 9, 10, 11. And we want to do the dentist wants to do a 3-unit bridge. So I want to start from the beginning on this one and take a look at a couple of things. One, we see our patient, and my first question is going to be what kind of guide are we going to use, analog or digital? In looking at that, we're treating the upper arch and that the vast majority of the teeth here, I mean everything except maybe one or two, teeth have full coverage restorations on there. The only ones that may or may not have full coverage restorations are right here, and they look like they have ceramic restorations. This would be a great case to use the classic guide, or what I call the analog workflow. And the analog workflow which starts with taking a bite plate relined, and that can become your surgical guide. So that's step one. The good news in this particular case is that sometimes with all ceramic restorations like tooth number 14 here and 6 and 7, sometimes we are able to get the CAD/CAM data to stitch quite nicely, and this happens to be one of those cases. Now we also, this dentist also had designed a nice 3-unit bridge as one restoration. So everything looks good from this end. The one thing that I would like to take a second here to talk about is maybe adjusting the panoramic view here. While it's not that important in the end of the day, because the 3D view is pretty much going to be one-to-one here, I do like to work from a panorama view that looks somewhat normal here. So we'll go to the Diagnosis tab, and then we'll click the Panorama button here, and now we can adjust our panorama field of view. So what I'll do is I go ahead and move up. This looks like a relatively bigger person, so we'll go to something along this line here, and we'll just try to get this lined up better to get a more appropriate panorama look here. So again, just kind of take a peek right here at how those lower teeth are looking, and how honestly the upper teeth look stretched out a little bit there. And then I'm going to click OK here, and the software will go ahead and adjust and update the panorama view. There we go. I was waiting to see if it made a liar of me. And here it comes. It should be updating here in a second now. So let's take a peek here. There we go. Our panorama view is updated, as you can see here. And now we can see how this looks a little bit more normal compared to what we started with. Again, not a necessary step, but one of the things I like to take a look at just to kind of have everything working nicely. So this dentist went ahead and planned out a couple of implants. So let's go ahead and take a look at those and see how we can adjust these. So let's take a look at our plan here. So the first thing that sticks out to my mind in this particular case in looking at it is just the axis here. So one of the things I look at, and it's not always fixable, but I'm kind of looking at the axis of the implant, but we know that our tooth kind of is coming this way. So from an occlusal perspective, I'd like to have my implant restorations or my implant placement properly support the occlusal plane. Now the other thing that also makes me think that is we look at the occlusal plane in our checklist, and one of the things I can see here is that our occlusal plane is not level. It is going like that. So I prefer to have it come straight up and down here like so. So to me that's a relatively easy fix. As I tilt this implant, now we can see that we're pretty straight across, just like so. Okay. Then we go ahead and adjust the position here to go ahead and get it better centered in the tooth, because as we can see here we're in the mesial, so we'll just move it to the distal a little bit, about the center of the tooth there. And now we can start working on our placement itself. And honestly, a 4.3 may be a bit large for this particular site. And now we can start getting it going about like so. Okay, so now we're getting this a little bit better. Now again, assuming that our margins are drawn correctly here based on how you want it, we want our implant to be approximately 3 millimeters below that. So our implant height is about accurate there. So I don't have any major issues with that. If anything, I might have a tendency to err on the side of being slightly below that because I think that emergence might be a little bit difficult there. So I would probably have a tendency to look at my emergence being more like so. Okay. So I think that should pretty much take care of this tooth. Now we've got plenty of space between the roots here, and then as we do a 360 on this, we can see that we're pretty well in bone here. It's a little bit tight right here. So there's a chance that we may end up having to flap and graft on this particular case. We can probably actually squeeze this just to the palate a little bit more, like that, and probably avoid any major issues there. That looks better. Okay. So now we move our focus to the canine, and now from there, my first thought on this canine is how deep are we? And again, assuming that our margin is drawn correctly, right now our implant head is about 5 millimeters below the proposed gingival margin, which we know that ideally we want that to be 3.5 millimeters. So our implant should probably be in a vertical position about yay high or so. So that gives us a better idea there. Now I think on this one, I've already made the decision that we're going to need to do 2 custom abutments and a cemented bridge due to the implant angulations. And then my guess is going to be that this particular one, tooth number 11, is going to need some grafting to be done properly. So I would intend or plan on doing either some pre-implant grafting or some implant grafting at the time of placement, but based on this head position here, I don't think that's going to be all that easy unless you're comfortable doing a ridge split and bony expansion there. So one other thing that I would look at here is see what would it look like if I paralleled this implant to tooth number 9. This would give me the ability to have them straight up and down, but this would be too close right here, and that doesn't really match ideal restoration support. So basically this is kind of where our implant positions need to be, and then we don't really have too much of a choice here but then to look at doing some type of grafting or more complex bony surgery there. So hopefully you find this helpful, and I appreciate you submitting this in, and if there's any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact me.